She told me there wasn't enough room for me at the beach house. That's what my mother said as I sat there, 32, single, loyal, on the other end of the line, clutching the same vacation planner I'd used for 10 years straight. No warning, no discussion, just erased. And yet, 10 hours later, I get a photo. There she is, my mother. On the deck I booked last year, clinking glasses with the one man who shattered my world, Ethan, my ex-husband. But that wasn't what broke me. What shattered me was when I called Nathan, my own brother, and he laughed and said, "You're overreacting. We made space for the people who matter. The woman who raised me, the man I once vowed to love, and now, even my blood. They didn't just leave me out. They replaced me." But as the door slammed behind their betrayal, I didn't cry. I booked a villa 200 feet away and started building something they'd never see coming. Funny how one lie about space can open the deepest cracks in a family 3 weeks earlier. My name is Chloe Anderson, and for as long as I can remember, my family has worn perfection like a polished crown. We were the Andersons from Raleigh, North Carolina, 5 siblings and 2 proud parents, the kind of clan neighbors whispered about with envy. Every year, without fail, we packed our sun hats, our traditions, and our matching optimism for the Outer Banks. Those beach vacations weren't just a trip. They were a ritual, a performance, and, in my mother's eyes, a reminder that we were everything a family should be. I can still hear the crackle of driftwood snapping under the bonfire, the sharp scent of salt water clinging to my hair, the chaos of kayak races that always ended in laughter and sand-smeared bragging rights. We would roast crabs in buttery pots so big they steamed the air, and Mom would look around with that satisfied smile that seemed to say, "See, we are flawless, we are untouchable." Of course, I was always the planner. That was my role. While others relaxed into the chaos, I was the one making sure the villas were booked a year in advance, the boat rental secured, the menu perfected, even down to the lanterns strung along the deck. It wasn't a burden. I wanted it. It gave me purpose. It gave me connection. Being the middle child in a family as large as mine meant you fought for your place in subtle ways, and organizing these trips was mine. I never questioned that they needed me, until this year. It started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, when the patter of water against my apartment window blended with the hum of my laptop. My desk was cluttered with receipts, vacation notebooks, and half-drunk mugs of coffee, evidence of someone ready to plan yet another Anderson summer. My phone lit up, Mom's name flashing across the screen. I smiled automatically, answering as I always did. "Hey, Mom, I was just about to call you with villa options." But her voice was wrong. "Chloe," she said softly, her words halting like stones in her throat, "the vacation's complicated this year." I froze, pen halfway to paper. Complicated? We didn't do complicated. We did flawless. I pressed the phone closer, searching for clues in her tone. "What do you mean? Did the resort mess up our booking?" I asked, already rifling through tabs on my laptop. Silence. Then a faint, audible breath. I imagined her in that oversized kitchen, her manicured nails tapping against the counter. When she finally spoke, her words were clipped, rehearsed. "There are some changes. Don't get upset." "Don't get upset?" My laugh cracked, brittle. "Mom, I've been planning these trips since college. What could possibly—" Her voice cut sharp. "We just had to make tough calls, Chloe. That's all." I leaned back, the leather of my chair groaning. My necklace, silver with a tiny seashell charm she had given me after our first Outer Banks trip, suddenly heavy against my collarbone. My fingers curled around it instinctively. That necklace had always been her way of saying I belonged. Why then did it feel like a noose tightening? "Am I included in these changes?" I whispered. The silence was unbearable, thick with the sound of rain hammering against glass. Then my father's voice, distant but clear, drifted into the call. "It's just for couples and kids, honey. It's practical." Practical. The word sliced deeper than any insult. My breath stuttered. Practical meant expendable. Practical meant I wasn't family enough. "I'm not a kid, and I was married once." My voice cracked before I could finish. "Chloe," Mom said firmly, "it's not personal." "Not personal?" Excluding me from the very tradition I built wasn't personal? My pen dropped to the desk with a dull thud. My chest burned, but before I could argue, before I could demand why, the line went dead. I sat there, staring at my reflection in the darkened window, the storm outside mirroring the one unraveling in my chest. My mind spun through every bonfire, every crab boil, every memory that was suddenly tainted. How could they erase me so easily? Then a chime. My phone buzzed again, a new message flashing from an unknown number. I opened it, my heart pounding. The photo filled the screen. Ethan, my ex-husband, the man who had shattered me 2 years ago with his infidelity. He was standing next to Mom at the very resort I had once scouted, both of them laughing, glasses raised in a toast. My stomach dropped as if the floor had disappeared. Underneath the photo, a caption glared back at me. "They don't want you to know." The necklace burned hot against my skin, as though searing its betrayal into me. I pressed it hard against my palm, desperate to steady the shaking. Who sent this? Who wanted me to see? And worse, why was Ethan there at all, when I, the one who had given everything to this family, wasn't? The room around me blurred, my apartment shrinking into a suffocating box. The rain outside was deafening, pounding like accusations. My breath came in shallow bursts. They chose him. They chose him over me. I whispered it aloud, my voice cracking in the empty room. How could they choose Ethan over me? The photo burned in my vision, that smug grin of his slicing through every fragile piece of me I had managed to rebuild. My own mother, laughing at his side, my father's casual dismissal echoing in my ears. Whoever had sent that message wanted me to know the truth. But what truth? That my family had erased me? Or that there was more beneath this betrayal than I could even imagine? I clutched the necklace until my hand throbbed, tears blurring the screen, anger twisting with disbelief. I had always held this family together, always. But in that moment, staring at Ethan's face, at my mother's betrayal, I realized something terrifying. Maybe I had never belonged at all. The storm outside hadn't stopped since that call. Sheets of rain streaked down my apartment window, warping the city lights into blurred smears of yellow and red. I sat curled on the edge of my couch, clutching the silver necklace in my fist so tightly that the charm pressed a red mark into my skin. It had always been a comfort, a reminder of belonging. Tonight it felt like a chain that kept me tethered to a lie I couldn't escape. I flipped open the worn leather album that sat heavy on my coffee table, its corners frayed from years of use. The smell of old paper and faint sunscreen clung to its pages, as though even photographs carried traces of saltwater air. Page after page, I saw my family frozen in perfect snapshots, beach bonfires glowing on tan skin, kayak paddles slicing through turquoise waves, Ethan's grin pressed into frame like he belonged there, his arm wrapped around me, his eyes sparkling at the camera. How had I missed it back then, that glimmer of something false? Now every photo felt contaminated. His smile wasn't joy. It was betrayal, waiting to surface. My throat tightened, and I slammed the album shut, the clap of it echoing through my small apartment. My phone trembled in my palm before I even realized I had dialed. Nathan, my older brother. If anyone would understand, it had to be him. He had always been the pragmatic one, the quiet anchor when storms raged too loud. He answered on the third ring. "Chloe? What's going on?" His voice was warm, familiar, almost enough to loosen the knot in my chest. "Nathan, did Mom or Dad tell you anything about this year's trip? About why I wasn't invited?" My words tumbled over one another, sharp, frantic. A pause, too long, then his chuckle, low and dismissive. "Don't be so sensitive, Chloe. It's just logistics. There's limited space. Don't make it bigger than it is." The words hit harder than I expected. "Logistics?" My voice rose, brittle. "Nathan, I've planned these vacations for a decade. I know how many villas the resort has. I know how many people fit. And suddenly there isn't room for me. But there's room for Ethan?" "Chill, Chloe," he said, his tone clipped now, like he was shutting a door in my face. "It's not personal, just space issues." I bit down on my lip until I tasted blood. How many times had I heard that phrase tonight? It's not personal. But how could being excluded from the very tradition I built not be personal? "You're siding with them." My whisper came out cracked, weaker than I wanted. "I'm not siding with anyone, I'm just telling you not to spiral." His sigh was heavy, annoyed. "You always take things too hard, just let it go this year." And just like that, the line went quiet. I sat there, the weight of his words pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. Not personal, just logistics. Spiral. That was what they thought of me, that I was fragile, dramatic, disposable. I wanted to scream, to hurl the phone against the wall, but instead I sank into the silence of my apartment, the storm outside swallowing me whole. When I finally moved, it was toward my laptop. I needed to see for myself. My hands shook as I pulled up the resort's booking site, the glow of the screen casting pale light across the clutter of photographs and unopened mail on my desk. I typed quickly, my breath shallow, my heart pounding with every click. And there it was, clear as day. An email confirmation under my family's name. Not one villa, but two. Two sprawling villas booked for the exact week of our vacation. Extra space. Space they claimed didn't exist. The room spun, the necklace searing against my skin, as if it knew the truth before I did. They lied, not just about me being excluded, but about why. Why would they lie? My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling as though the answers might spill from the screen if I pressed hard enough. I scrolled through the confirmation again, my eyes catching on Ethan's name tucked neatly into the guest list. My stomach turned. My ex-husband was given a place where I wasn't. I pressed my palm to my mouth, stifling the sob that threatened to break loose. The storm outside thundered, rattling the window as if the sky itself wanted me to listen. Was this just about Ethan? Or was there something bigger at play? My thoughts spiraled, dragging me deeper into a pit I couldn't see the bottom of. Who had sent that anonymous text? Someone close enough to know the truth, but distant enough to stay hidden. Someone who wanted me to see what my family was doing, but why? To help me? Or to hurt me more? The questions swarmed, circling like vultures. They had room all along. Why lie? And who's hiding in the shadows, pulling me into a story I never agreed to play in? I closed the laptop with trembling hands, the slam vibrating through the wooden desk. The storm raged on outside, but inside, the silence stretched long and suffocating. My chest heaved as I clutched the necklace once more, my pulse racing beneath it. I wanted to believe this was just a mistake, that Nathan was right, that I was overreacting. But the email burned in my mind, undeniable, a scar written in pixels. This wasn't logistics. This wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, and I was starting to realize I might not be fighting for just my place in a vacation. I might be fighting against something far darker. Morning light spilled weakly through the blinds, a pale gold that stretched across the rain-slicked streets outside. The storm had left behind a damp chill, the kind that clung to the air and seeped into my apartment walls. My living room was a wreck. Papers scattered across the coffee table, half-empty mugs dotting the floor, the leather-bound photo album shoved to the side like a wound I couldn't bear to reopen. In the center of it all sat my laptop, its glow a cold invitation. I ran my thumb over the silver necklace at my throat, the seashell charm cool against my skin now. Last night it had seared me like fire. Today it felt different, lighter, restless, as if urging me toward something I wasn't ready to name. For hours I had sat frozen, circling the same questions. Why had they lied? Why Ethan? Why me? But as the daylight crept further into the room, something shifted inside me. Grief hardened into defiance. If my family thought they could erase me, they were about to learn how wrong they were. I pulled the laptop closer and opened the resort site again. Photos of sprawling villas stretched across the screen, each one boasting wide decks and oceanfront views, the kind of glossy perfection my family worshipped. My heart pounded as I scrolled, fingers trembling, rage and determination tangling in my chest. And then I saw it. A villa larger than the ones they had booked, with a private beach that seemed to glow in the photographs. Sunlight poured across its wooden deck. White curtains billowed in the sea breeze, and lanterns hung in neat rows above polished tables. I hesitated. The price stared back at me, bold and unapologetic, a number big enough to make my stomach twist. But then I pictured Mom's face when she spotted me there, radiant and unbroken, surrounded by people who chose me willingly. I pictured the flicker in her eyes when she realized I hadn't disappeared but risen higher. That vision steadied my hand. I typed in my card details, every keystroke a vow, every digit a strike against the lie they'd tried to bury me in. My hands shook as I pressed the final key. The confirmation pinged, sharp and clear, cutting through the silence of the room. Deposit secured, my villa, my rebellion. Almost instantly, my phone buzzed across the table. Nora's name lit the screen. My best friend, my safe place. I answered with a shaky breath. "Chloe," she said immediately, her voice brimming with concern. "You sound like you've been through hell. What happened?" I paced the apartment, words tumbling out faster than I could control. The call with Mom, Dad's cold practicality, Nathan's dismissal, the email proving their lie, and finally, the photo. Ethan's smug face beside my mother's. Each word cut my throat on the way out. By the time I finished, my voice was ragged, my hand pressed hard against my necklace to ground myself. On the other end, silence stretched. Then Nora's sharp exhale cracked like thunder. "They invited him and left you out." Her voice trembled with fury. "That's not just careless, Chloe. That's cruel. Beyond cruel." Tears burned my eyes again, but this time they didn't fall. I clenched my jaw, waiting. "No," she said firmly, her tone shifting to steel. "You're not going to let them erase you. You're going to fight back. You're going to make this epic." A startled laugh broke from me, raw and cracked. "Epic?" "Yes," she said, her conviction sparking through the phone. "You've always been the one holding those vacations together, the planner, the heartbeat. They think you're nothing without them, but you're about to prove you're everything without them. Bigger, better, louder. Trust me, Chloe, they'll regret crossing you." Her words struck like a match in the dark, catching on the fire that had been waiting inside me. I looked back at the glowing confirmation screen, the villa's name stamped under mine. Chloe Anderson, my name, not theirs. My villa, not theirs. For the first time in days, I inhaled fully, air filling my lungs sharp and sweet. "I already booked it," I whispered. There was a beat of silence before Nora's delighted laugh rang out, warm and triumphant. "That's my girl, atta girl, you're brilliant." I closed my eyes, letting the sound of her laughter steady the tremor in my chest. Images unfurled in my mind, vivid and unstoppable. A sunlit villa alive with music and laughter, lanterns strung across the deck, glowing like stars against the night. My friends gathered around me, college roommates, co-workers, people who had never asked me to be smaller, clinking glasses, their joy louder than the ocean, the smell of grilled lobster filling the air, voices rising in songs and stories, spilling into the salt-heavy night. And just beyond the line of dunes, my family's resort. Close enough to hear the echoes of what they had lost. Close enough for Mom to see me and know that I hadn't broken, that I had built something greater. The thought left me dizzy, intoxicated. "They think I'm nothing without them," I murmured, the words spilling like a vow. My fingers tightened around the necklace. It no longer burned. It shimmered, cool and alive against my skin. "But I'll prove I'm enough. More than enough." "Exactly," Nora said fiercely. "They wanted to silence you, but you're about to show them you can outshine every single one of them." I sank onto the couch, the necklace feather light now, no longer a burden, but a banner. For the first time since this nightmare began, it didn't feel like a chain. It felt like a signal, a reminder that I could reclaim my place, that their betrayal didn't get the final word. But even as defiance swelled inside me, fear lingered at the edges. My stomach tightened. What if this backfired? What if they twisted the story? What if Ethan spun lies the way he always had, making me look like the villain? My breath faltered, a whisper of doubt in the quiet. My gaze fell back to the laptop screen, the confirmation glowing steady and undeniable. My name, my stand. Fear or not, the decision had been made. The storm outside had passed, but inside me, a new one gathered strength. One not born of grief, but of fire. One not about being erased, but about writing myself back into the story, louder, brighter, unstoppable. And when the time came, I would face Mom across the beach, her lies no match for the pride burning in my chest. The necklace would gleam under the sun, not as a chain, but as a weapon. This was no longer about a vacation. It was about reclaiming my place, my voice, my worth, and I was ready. The decision had been made, but decisions without action are just whispers in the dark. My apartment transformed into something between a battlefield and a command center. The glow of my laptop cast sharp angles across the walls, highlighting lists scrawled on sticky notes, receipts piled like ammunition, and a planner already half filled with names and numbers. For years I'd orchestrated vacations for my family down to the smallest detail. Now for the first time, I was doing it for me. Nora threw herself into the plan with the kind of energy only she could summon. Her calls came fast, sometimes 2 or 3 in a single morning, each one brimming with new leads. "I've got a chef," she announced one day, her voice crackling with triumph. "Local guy, does private crab boils. His food puts the resort's buffet to shame. He said he'll make your deck smell like heaven itself." I smiled despite the heaviness pressing against my chest. "You're unreal, Nora." "That's why you love me," she teased. "And listen, remember that sailboat I told you about? Sunset cruises? Picture it. You and your friends sailing past the resort while they're stuck eating overcooked shrimp. Chloe, this is going to be unforgettable." Her words painted the vision brighter. For the first time in weeks, I felt something tug at me that wasn't grief, anticipation. I grabbed my phone and started reaching out. Names rolled off my tongue as naturally as breath. Coworkers who had carried me through impossible deadlines. College friends who remembered me before Ethan dimmed my spark. 12 in total. 12 voices, 12 pieces of my life outside the family that had abandoned me. Every single one of them said yes. Not one hesitation, not one excuse. Their excitement rushed through me like oxygen, filling the hollow places my family had left behind. By the end of that week, the villa wasn't just an idea. It was real. It was alive. I had built it, not with wood or glass, but with choice. My choice. But rebellion has a way of stirring ghosts. One night, as I dug through my keepsake box for decorations I might bring, my fingers brushed something sharp. I pulled out a photograph, edges bent and dusty. My breath snagged in my throat. It was from one of our beach vacations, sunlight spilling across the sand, the whole family grinning in our matching shirts. But my face had been scratched out. Deep, angry gouges tore across the glossy paper, erasing me. The room tilted. My hand shook as I held the photo up to the light, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Who would do this? And why? The photo slipped from my grasp, landing face down on the carpet. Beneath it, buried in the bottom of the box, was something worse. A folded scrap of paper in my mother's handwriting, the script unmistakable. I unfolded it with trembling fingers, the words cut like glass. The necklace went missing years ago. Don't ask about it again. I gasped and grabbed at the chain around my neck, the silver charm pressing hot against my palm. The very necklace she had told me was lost. She hadn't just lied, she had taken it. She had stolen the one symbol of belonging she had given me, then buried it beneath years of silence. Why? Why steal it? Why erase me? The necklace, once a comfort, now felt like a wound, heavy, searing, a reminder that my mother's betrayal hadn't begun with a phone call. It had been unfolding piece by piece, as though she'd been carving me out of the picture long before I realized. "Mom didn't just take my place," I whispered, the words trembling in the quiet. "She tried to erase me entirely." Sleep was impossible that night. The photo, the note, the weight of the necklace, all of it churned inside me like a storm I couldn't calm. By morning, I knew I had to move forward or drown in it. The Outer Banks greeted me days later with sunlight bouncing off the waves and the salty wind tangling my hair. The villa rose before me, sprawling and luminous, its decks stretching wide like open arms. Windows caught the sun, rooms flooded with light. For a moment, I just stood there, my chest swelling. This was mine, not theirs. Mine. I unpacked carefully, savoring the ritual. Lanterns came first. I strung them across the deck one by one, the bulbs glowing faintly as twilight deepened. Each light clicked on with a soft hum, golden circles pushing back the dusk. Standing there, arms crossed, I watched them flicker to life, my throat tightening. Each glow felt like a challenge, a declaration. I'm still here. "They think they can dim me," I whispered, almost daring the wind to carry my words to the resort. "But I'll blind them with my glow." Nora arrived just as the last bulb lit, lugging a box of supplies onto the deck. She paused, looking at the lights with a grin. "This villa's gonna outshine theirs, Chloe, trust me." I met her eyes, my own burning. "That's the plan." We worked side by side, hanging candles, arranging tables, setting details I once would have fussed over for my parents. The air smelled of salt and fresh wood, the waves rising and falling with the rhythm of a heartbeat beneath us. For moments at a time, it almost felt like joy. But the ghosts lingered. The photo, the scratched-out smile, the note, the necklace. The mystery clung to me as tightly as the sea air, refusing to let go. What kind of mother steals from her daughter? What does she gain by erasing her? I didn't have the answers, but I had this villa, this light, this defiance. As night fell, I stood on the deck and looked out across the dunes. In the distance, faint lights from the resort flickered. But here, my lanterns glowed brighter, golden fire strung across the darkness. My heart ached with both pain and pride, torn between the family I had lost and the one I was building. Mom had stolen my necklace. She had tried to erase me. But no matter what she took, she would never steal my light. The night the lanterns were first lit, my villa transformed into something alive, something breathing. Strings of warm golden light stretched across the deck, glowing like constellations caught and tamed, their reflection shimmering in the dark waves below. Music pulsed from hidden speakers, the bass thrumming in my chest and blending with the crash of the ocean. The salty air was heavy with the smell of garlic butter, charred shells, and lobster meat sizzling on the grill. Every sense was drenched in the feeling of celebration, of ownership. For once, I wasn't arranging details to please anyone else. No carefully laid menus to satisfy Dad's pickiness. No fine wines to match Mom's refined palate. This night wasn't for them. It was for me. Every laugh, every bite of food, every glowing lantern was proof I had built something they couldn't take away. Nora floated through the party like she had orchestrated it all herself, a wine glass in each hand, her dress fluttering with the sea breeze. She climbed onto a chair, raising both glasses high. "To Chloe!" she shouted, her voice carrying above the music and waves. "To proving you don't need anyone's permission to shine!" The cheer that followed was thunderous. Glasses clinked. Someone whistled. A rush of warmth spread through me, not embarrassment, but a fierce pride that burned away the ache still lodged in my chest. For the first time in too long, I felt the glow of belonging. My friends were here because they wanted to be, because they chose me, not because of some family script they were forced to play. I sank into a cushioned chair near the edge of the deck, my plate heavy with lobster drenched in butter. The shell cracked beneath my fingers, juices slicking my hands, the taste rich and indulgent on my tongue. I closed my eyes briefly, letting myself savor the salt, the smoke, the warmth. That's when my phone buzzed in my lap. A text. I wiped my hands quickly on a napkin, frowning when I saw the name. Grace, my cousin. "Chloe, where are you?" Confusion rippled through me. She didn't know? My fingers tapped back quickly. "At the villa. Why?" Her reply came in seconds, and with it my pulse spiked. "Wait, you're not working? Mom said you bailed for some last-minute project. Everyone thought you just didn't care enough to come." The words hit me harder than any wave crashing against the shore. My stomach dropped, my fork clattering against the plate. They hadn't just excluded me, they rewrote me, lied about me, painted me as selfish, disinterested, the daughter who couldn't even bother to show up. The phone screen glowed cold against my trembling hands, and I could feel fury boiling up, hot and relentless. My breath came shallow, ragged. I wrapped my fingers around the silver necklace at my throat, the charm digging into my palm until it hurt. It wasn't pain I pulled from it. It was steadiness. Rage could drown me, but the necklace grounded me, a reminder of what they tried to take but couldn't. "They lied to everyone," I whispered under my breath, my voice shaking. The music, the laughter, the crash of waves swallowed my words. "But I'm done hiding in their shadow." "Chloe?" Nora's voice cut in, close to my ear. She leaned down, her face soft but searching. "You okay?" I forced a smile. though my jaw ached from holding it too tight. "Better than okay," I answered, but the tone came out low, sharp, carrying the edge of something fierce. Her eyes lingered, as if she wanted to press, but she nodded and handed me a fresh glass of wine. "Good, because tonight's yours." The laughter and chatter rose around me again, swirling like a shield, but I couldn't shake the text. Every cousin, every aunt, every uncle, did they all believe I'd abandoned them? Did they whisper my name with disdain, pity, or worse, indifference? My mother had stolen not just my place at the table, but the story of who I was. I lifted my gaze toward the dunes, and then I saw her. A silhouette sharp against the faint resort lights beyond the fence, still, watching. Mom, even cloaked in shadow, I knew. Her spine was too rigid, her stance too commanding to be anyone else. She stood like a judge, arms crossed, gaze fixed on me, dissecting me from a distance. I could feel it cutting through the night, colder than the sea wind, sharper than any blade. The music dulled in my ears, the party sounds slipping into the background. The waves seemed louder now, crashing hard and fast, as if echoing the pulse in my chest. My breath slowed, every nerve locked on her figure. I didn't look away. Instead, I rose from my chair, lifted my chin, and let the fury twist into something steadier, defiance. I touched the necklace, cool now against my skin, and smiled. Not the kind of smile that begged for approval, but one honed sharp enough to slice through lies. I imagined the whispers spreading when Grace realized the truth. When she told the others that I hadn't abandoned them, I'd been cut out and lied about. The image Mom had crafted, me, the careless daughter, would fracture, crumble, collapse under the weight of her own deceit. She wanted me gone, erased. But here I was, lanterns blazing behind me, music pounding, friends laughing, my light impossible to ignore. The night carried on, glasses refilled. My friends swayed barefoot in the sand, their laughter rising with the tide. I stayed near the edge of the deck, my eyes locked on that silhouette. My pulse matched the rhythm of the waves, steady, unrelenting. She thought she could rewrite me out of the family's story. But I was writing myself back in. One lantern, one laugh, one fiery breath at a time. This was only the beginning. The sun was merciless that afternoon, blazing down on the Outer Banks like it wanted to burn every secret into the open. The air shimmered with heat, the salt wind stinging my face as I dug my paddle deep into the turquoise water. Laughter and shouts echoed all around me, my friends in their kayaks, racing each other, splashing, tipping over with reckless joy. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was laughing too. The water sprayed cool against my arms, droplets sparkling like diamonds under the sun. "Come on, Chloe," Nora shouted from behind, her paddle slicing furiously through the waves. "Show them who's boss!" I leaned forward, muscles burning, the kayak gliding faster toward the shore. The cheers from the beach carried over the water, blending with the rhythmic crash of waves. For a fleeting moment it felt like victory, pure, untainted, mine. But as we closed in on the sand, the cheers shifted. Laughter died, replaced by a murmur, then a ripple of silence broken by a single cutting voice. "Stop pretending, Chloe!" I froze mid-paddle. The words didn't come from my friends. They came from the shore, from her. My younger sister Lily stood there, sun glaring off her skin, her chest heaving as if she'd run the entire beach just to confront me. Her eyes blazed, and when she shouted again, her voice carried across the waves like a whip. "You were never one of us, Chloe. Mom said you're the mistake that broke our family." The paddle slipped from my hands, splashing into the water. My body went numb. The words hit harder than any betrayal Ethan had ever delivered. My own sister. The one I thought I might still have a sliver of bond with. The one I thought might understand. A mistake. She called me a mistake. The kayaks bumped against the sand as we reached the shore, but I barely noticed. I staggered out, feet sinking into the wet sand, my skin burning not from the sun, but from the humiliation scorching me in front of everyone. My friends had fallen quiet, their faces tight with shock. Even relatives lingering by the resort had turned, eyes wide, their whispers cutting through the heavy air. Lily didn't stop. She jabbed a finger at me, her voice sharp and trembling with anger. "You think you can just waltz in with your little party, your stupid villa, and act like you belong? You don't. You never did. Mom told me everything." My throat tightened, but my voice refused to come. It was as if the ocean itself had swallowed it whole. Then I saw it, gleaming at her throat. The necklace. Not just any necklace. The same silver seashell I had found missing all those years ago. The one Mom had sworn was lost. It shone in the sunlight like a blade, cruel and mocking. My heart stopped. It wasn't just about erasing me. Mom had given it to her. My necklace, my symbol, my belonging, handed to my younger sister like I had never existed. Lily saw the way I stared and smirked bitterly. "Oh, this?" she taunted, fingers brushing the charm. "Mom said it suits me better. She said I deserved it, because I stood by her, because I didn't turn against the family like you did." The words tore through me, jagged and merciless. My knees buckled, the sand shifting beneath me. The world tilted, the sun too bright, the heat pressing down, the laughter gone. All I could hear was her voice. All I could see was that necklace flashing like a knife. "Why, Lily?" I finally choked out, the sound raw and broken. Her face hardened. "Because if I didn't, Mom said she'd cut me out. No inheritance, nothing. Do you think I'm stupid? I'm not going to throw my future away for you. You were always the problem, Chloe. You always ruined everything." The air left my lungs in a ragged gasp. My own sister, my own blood, trading me for money, for Mom's approval, for the shallow promise of belonging. The crowd had gathered now, whispers rising, eyes darting between us. I could feel my friends behind me, tense, silent, waiting. My chest burned, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. This betrayal. It cut deeper than Ethan's cheating, deeper than Mom's lies. Because this was Lily. And she had chosen to carve me out, not just with silence, but with a knife to the heart. My legs threatened to give out, but then, warmth. A firm grip wrapped around my arm. "Nora." Her hand steadied me, her voice low, urgent. "Don't let her break you, Chloe. Look at me." I forced myself to meet Nora's eyes, and in them I found an anchor. Steady, fierce, refusing to let me collapse in the sand like they wanted me to. My chest heaved, the fury mixing with heartbreak, the necklace at my throat burning against my skin, as if it too demanded I stay standing. I turned back toward Lily, my voice trembling but louder now, stronger than I thought possible. "You can have the necklace, you can have Mom's lies, but you will never take me down. Not here, not now." For the first time, her face faltered. Just for a second, doubt flickered in her eyes. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. My heart had cracked wide open, raw and bleeding. As Nora pulled me back toward the villa, whispers spread like wildfire across the beach. The word mistake clung to the air, poisonous and heavy. I clutched my necklace, my true necklace, the one they hadn't stolen, the one still pressed against my skin. Lily's words echoed inside me, sharper than any blade. "You were never one of us. Mom said you're the mistake that broke our family." And as much as I wanted to scream, to crumble, to disappear, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity. This wasn't the end. It was only the middle. And if they thought I'd vanish now, they had no idea what storm was coming. The afternoon sun blazed overhead, scattering glitter across the ocean's surface and heating the sand until it burned beneath bare feet. The air was thick with salt and sunscreen, laughter spilling from my cousins as we spiked the volleyball over the net stretched across my villa's private stretch of beach. The thump of the ball, the squeals of missed saves, and the crash of waves created a rhythm that almost drowned out the heaviness of the past few days. For a moment, it felt normal, almost like the vacations we used to have, except this time I was the one hosting, the one in control. My heart beat in time with the game, every successful serve, every cheer from Grace and the others, a reminder that I wasn't erased. I was here, alive, radiant in the sun. I dove for a ball, sand exploding beneath me, when I heard it. "Chloe!" The voice cracked across the beach like a whip, sharp, cold. My blood froze before I even turned. Mom, she stood near the edge of the deck, her figure framed by the glowing lantern strung above, her arms crossed tight. Her eyes swept the scene, my cousins, the net, the laughter, and her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "You're ruining our tradition," she snapped, her voice slicing through the warm air. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? You're tearing this family apart." The volleyball dropped from my hands, rolling into the sand. My pulse thudded painfully in my ears. Of course she would come. Of course she would turn joy into accusation. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, another voice cut through the silence. "Stop, Mom!" It was Sophia, my older sister. She stepped forward from the crowd of cousins, her face pale, her hands shaking, but her voice steady enough to still the air. She pulled her phone from her pocket, her eyes locking on Mom's. "Don't do this," Sophia said, her voice trembling with both fear and fury. "You know the truth, and it's not Chloe." Confusion rippled across the cousins, their chatter fading. Grace frowned, glancing between us. Mom stiffened. "Sophia, not here, not now." But Sophia's voice grew louder. She turned her phone so everyone could see, her fingers trembling as she scrolled. "I saw the messages, Mom, from Ethan. He's been texting her, his mistress, during this trip. Last night I saw them together." Gasps broke across the beach. Heads turned, cousins whispering, eyes darting to me, to Sophia, then to Mom. My chest constricted, my throat burning as if the very air had turned to ash. Sophia's eyes glistened, but her glare was sharp. "You knew, didn't you? You knew he was doing this again, and instead of protecting Chloe, you protected him." My heart slammed against my ribs. Ethan, still cheating, still lying. The storm inside me rose higher, a tidal wave threatening to crash. Mom's face flushed, her voice rising. "That's enough. You don't understand. Chloe is the troublemaker here. She's the one who can't let go. She's the one tearing us apart." "No, Mom!" Sophia's voice cracked, but she didn't back down. She held the phone higher, the texts glaring in the sunlight, words of desire, of secrecy, undeniable. "Ethan is tearing us apart, and you're letting him. You're defending him while blaming Chloe for everything." For a heartbeat, the entire beach fell silent. Even the waves seemed to pause. The only sound was the frantic pounding of my heart. Grace stepped forward, her voice strong with outrage. "This is insane. Chloe's not the problem here. He is." Other cousins nodded, murmuring agreement. "She's right. Why would Mom defend Ethan? This doesn't make sense." The tide of voices swelled around me, and for once, they weren't against me. They were mine. They saw me. I gripped my necklace, the silver charm cool against my skin, and forced myself to breathe. But inside, my thoughts screamed. Mom chose Ethan's lies over me. She always does. How much deeper does this go? Mom's eyes darted, her mask cracking, but she lifted her chin, her voice sharp with desperation. "Don't let Chloe twist this. She's manipulative. She's always been the troublemaker." But the cousins weren't buying it. Grace stepped closer to me, her stance protective. "No, Aunt Margaret, we're done with lies. Chloe isn't the problem. You are." The silence that followed was deafening. The volleyball net swayed in the breeze, forgotten. The waves crashed louder again, echoing the tension that pulsed in every heartbeat. I stood frozen, fury and vindication warring inside me. Sophia's bravery, the cousins' defense. It should have felt like victory, but instead it left me hollow because the truth was worse than the lie. Ethan hadn't just betrayed me once, he never stopped. And Mom hadn't just chosen him over me. She had buried the truth again and again, because protecting the image mattered more than protecting her daughter. The sun blazed hotter, the sand searing my feet. But I didn't move. I couldn't. My eyes locked on Mom's, her coldness colliding with my rage, and in that moment, I knew this was far from over. This wasn't just about Ethan anymore. This was about the rot at the core of my family, and the terrifying truth that Mom would rather shatter me than shatter her illusion. The night felt heavier than usual, as though the ocean itself had exhaled a long, weary sigh and left its weight inside the villa. My friend's laughter still floated faintly from the deck, mingling with the steady rhythm of the waves, but it only made the silence in the study more suffocating. I closed the door behind me, shutting out the golden glow of lanterns, and the darkness of the room wrapped around me like a secret I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. The air smelled faintly of salt carried in from the sea, but underneath lingered the old scent of polish and wood, a smell that always reminded me of closed drawers and hidden things. A single lamp sat on the desk, its light warm but dim, throwing long shadows across the bookshelves and making the corners of the room feel distant, unreachable. My eyes fell on the keepsake box I had brought here, the same box that had already wounded me with too many discoveries. Photos carved with anger, proof of things stolen, reminders that my own mother had tried to erase me piece by piece. My fingers hovered over the lid, the way one hesitates before reopening an old scar. Something deep inside me knew that if I looked again, I would find something worse. But I couldn't stop myself. The wood creaked softly as I lifted the lid. Beneath scattered postcards and folded receipts, tucked carefully in the bottom as though it had been meant to stay hidden forever, I found an envelope. The handwriting was unmistakable. My mother's. I froze. The ink was slightly faded, the edges yellowed, but her script was steady enough to pierce me before I had even opened it. For a long moment I just stared, my pulse drumming in my ears, my throat dry. Finally, I slid my finger under the seal and pulled the letter free. The paper crackled faintly, delicate, fragile, as if it had been waiting years for this moment. Her words met me in shaky, uneven lines. "Chloe, I know Ethan is cheating. I've known for some time, but you must not confront him. Families only stay intact when we protect the image, not the truth. If you love us, you'll understand. If you speak, everything we've built will collapse." The words bled into me like poison. My chest tightened, my lungs struggling to catch air. I could almost see her sitting at some desk, pen in hand, convincing herself this was noble, sacrificing me for the sake of the family's facade. Her shaky handwriting wasn't strength. It was weakness. It was pain wrapped in denial. The silver necklace at my throat seemed to grow heavier with every heartbeat, the chain pressing so hard against my skin it felt like shackles. I touched it, gripping until the charm dug into my palm, and whispered into the dim light. Mom's words cut deeper than Ethan's lies. How could she choose image over me? The silence in the study pressed back at me, as though even the walls refused to answer. My hands trembled as I folded the letter again, but this time I didn't put it away. Some things should never stay hidden. Minutes later, I stepped onto the villa's deck. The night air hit me cold and sharp, carrying the salt of the ocean and the low roar of waves. Lanterns glowed above us like captive stars. My relatives were gathered. Grace with her arms crossed, Sophia pale but resolute, Nathan lingering at the back like a shadow trying to stay unseen. Their chatter dimmed when they saw my face, and the letter trembling in my hand. "This," I said, my voice louder than I expected, "is from Mom." Gasps rustled through the group like wind through leaves. I unfolded the letter, the paper quivering between my fingers, and began to read. Each word fell heavy against the night, striking deeper than the crash of waves. Faces shifted. Shock, disbelief, anger. Some whispered under their breath, others shook their heads. The silence between each sentence stretched long, filled only by the sound of my voice breaking. When I finished, the world seemed to pause. The sea itself felt quieter, as though even it was waiting for someone to speak. My chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, the necklace pressing like an anchor against my heart. Nathan stepped forward, his expression pained, his jaw tight. He hesitated, as though swallowing down years of silence, before finally admitting, "She made me keep quiet, Chloe, for the family's sake. She said if I told you, it would destroy us." His voice cracked, his shoulders slumping under the weight of the confession. I stared at him, my voice hoarse. "And you listened?" His eyes dropped to the sand, shame painting his features. "She's our mother. I thought I was protecting us." The fury inside me surged hot, but beneath it was something colder. This wasn't just about Ethan's betrayal anymore. It wasn't even about Lily or Sophia. This was about a mother who had chosen a mirage over her own daughter, who had sacrificed me to maintain a hollow image. The necklace burned hotter, no longer a reminder of belonging, but a brand of captivity. I clenched it tighter, the metal biting into my skin until my palm ached. Then I lifted my chin, meeting the eyes around me. "I'm done protecting lies," I said, my voice steady now, carved out of pain and fire. "If she chose the image over me, then I'll tear the image down." The waves crashed louder, echoing the vow that left my lips. Gasps still hung in the air. Grace's face flushed with anger. Sophia's eyes shimmered with guilt. Nathan's head bowed with shame. And though Mom wasn't there, I could almost feel her presence beyond the dunes, her silence sharper than any scream. The betrayal was crushing, pressing down on me like the ocean itself, but beneath it ran a thread of steel. I wasn't crumbling. I was rising piece by piece, fueled by the truth she had tried to bury. This letter wasn't her victory. It was my turning point, and I would not back down. The villa's bedroom was wrapped in silence, the kind that presses against your skin until it feels unbearable. Only the ocean outside broke it, waves crashing in steady rhythm, a heartbeat against the shore. I stood before the mirror, staring at a reflection I could barely claim as mine, eyes swollen from tears, hair tangled by sea wind, shoulders tense as if bracing for another blow. On the dresser, the silver necklace lay waiting. The charm glinted faintly in the soft lamplight, catching shadows like it knew every secret I was too exhausted to carry. My hand trembled as I picked it up. The metal was cold, almost cruel, but I slipped it around my neck anyway. It settled against my collarbone with a familiar weight, pressing into me like a reminder. Every betrayal, every lie, every silence, they were all strung into this chain I couldn't escape. I let out a shaky breath and leaned closer to the mirror. The glass showed me a woman worn thin, but not broken. My lips parted in a whisper I barely recognized as my own. This necklace holds our past, but can I carry its weight and move forward? The question echoed inside me, colliding with the relentless sound of waves. Was my family worth saving after all they'd done? Could something so fractured ever be mended? The phone buzzed on the nightstand, its glow startling in the dim room. My chest tightened when I saw her name, Lily. The message was clumsy, typed in haste. "I'm sorry. Mom twisted everything. She told me if I didn't back her, I'd lose everything. I was scared. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean what I said." My hand clenched around the phone. This was the same sister who had stood in front of everyone and called me a mistake. Now she was apologizing. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping beneath me as my thoughts collided. Part of me wanted to scoff, to throw the phone aside and never look back. But another part, a quieter, stubborn part, remembered the girl she used to be. The one who would sneak into my room when storms rattled the windows, whispering stories until we both fell asleep. The sister who once swore she'd never leave me behind. Which version of her was real? The cruel voice echoing Mom's poison, or the frightened child still tangled in Mom's web? Before I could untangle the mess in my chest, the phone lit up again, this time with a call. Nathan. His name burned against the dark like a lifeline I wasn't sure I could trust. I answered, my voice rough. "Hello?" There was a pause, then his voice, low, strained, heavy with guilt. "Chloe, I should have spoken up. About Ethan. About Mom. I thought I was protecting the family, but all I did was help her hurt you. I can't undo it, but I need you to know, I'm with you now. I won't stay silent anymore." The words hit me harder than I expected. For months, maybe years, I had convinced myself I was utterly alone, that even those who could have defended me had chosen silence instead. And now, here he was, faltering but finally stepping into the truth. My throat tightened. "It's a little late, don't you think?" The words came out cracked, a mix of anger and grief. "I know," he said quickly. "I know it doesn't erase anything, but I can't let her break us apart anymore. I need you to believe me. I won't let you stand alone again." I pressed the phone to my ear, my free hand gripping the necklace until the charm dug into my skin. For the first time in so long, I felt the smallest shift, a piece of the wall around me crumbling, not from defeat, but from something close to relief. After the call ended, I sat in the dim room, staring at my reflection again. The necklace lay against my skin like both a chain and a shield. My mind reeled with everything: Ethan's deceit, Lily's betrayal, Mom's letter, Nathan's silence. Each wound layered on top of the next until I wasn't sure how I was still standing. Bitterness tugged at me, sharp and tempting. It would be easy to let it win, to calcify every hurt into armor I'd never take off. But as I studied the woman in the mirror, I realized something bitterly clear. Mom hadn't just betrayed me, she had betrayed the very meaning of family. She had chosen image over love, silence over truth. And if I let myself turn into the reflection of her choice, Then I'd lose everything I still had left. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing what she had done. It was about refusing to let her keep my heart in chains. I whispered again, softer this time. This necklace holds our past, but I'll decide how much of it I carry forward. The waves outside roared louder, as though they heard me. I thought of Lily's apology, raw and clumsy but real. I thought of Nathan's vow, shaky yet earnest. Cracks had formed in the fortress Mom had built, cracks that might destroy us or let the light in. When I opened my eyes again, my reflection hadn't changed, but I had. The necklace still pressed heavy against me, but it was no longer just a chain. It was proof that I had endured, that I was still standing, that no matter how much they tried to erase me, I had survived. Could the family be mended? I didn't know. The mystery lingered, stretching out into the night like the endless tide. But I knew this much: I would not carry the weight of hate. Forgiveness was my rebellion, my choice. The night deepened, the ocean pounding steady against the shore, and for the first time in years, a fragile flicker of hope stirred inside me. The night air was thick with salt and tension as we gathered on the villa's deck. Lanterns swayed above us, casting warm halos that stretched across the planks, their light fighting against the heavy shadows. The ocean roared in the background, relentless and unbothered, a rhythm that underscored the silence between us. Every cousin, every sibling, every gaze was locked on me, waiting. My heart hammered like a drum, but when I lifted the crumpled letter, my hands did not shake. "This is from Mom," I said, my voice cutting through the humid air. The words tumbled out steady, louder than I thought possible, echoing against the wood, against the crashing waves. I read her confession, her knowing Ethan's betrayal, and her choice to bury the truth for the family's image. Each sentence seemed to hang in the air long after it left my lips, as if the lantern light itself absorbed the weight. By the time I finished, the deck was a graveyard of silence. Eyes turned to Mom. She stood slightly apart from the circle, arms locked across her chest, face sharp and unreadable. But I saw the twitch in her jaw, the uneven rise of her breath. Then, like glass fracturing under pressure, she broke. Tears carved harsh lines down her cheeks. Her voice ripped raw from her throat. "I didn't want you to outshine us, Chloe. You were always brighter, louder, more seen. Do you know how hard that was, watching the family's attention bend toward you while the rest of us dimmed in comparison?" She shook her head violently, sobs cracking her words. "So yes, I tried to contain you. I thought if the truth came out, you'd tear us all down with it. I was scared of what you'd become if I didn't control you." The confession struck like a blade, sharper than Ethan's betrayal, sharper even than Lily's. Outshine. The word branded itself into me, burning with every syllable she had spit across the years. She wasn't just protecting the family, she had been protecting herself from me. Before I could respond, Dad's voice rose, gravelly and heavy with guilt. I should have stopped this. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. "I saw what she was doing, Chloe. I saw how she singled you out, and I told myself it was for the peace of the family, that silence was safer than truth. But I was wrong. I let it happen. I let you carry it alone, and I'm sorry." His head dropped, his shoulders collapsing inward like the apology itself had hollowed him out. For years I had craved those words. Now hearing them, I felt something far more complicated than vindication. The apology wasn't a balm. It was a mirror of wounds left open too long, too raw to close neatly. Sophia stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "Mom, no. Chloe isn't the one tearing us apart. You are, and I can't keep pretending otherwise. You let Ethan walk all over her. You let this fester. And I'm done being complicit." Her fists were clenched so tightly her knuckles whitened, but her spine held tall. Lily's eyes shimmered with guilt as she spoke next, her voice softer but steady. "Me too. I let you twist me. I said things to Chloe I can never take back, but she's not the mistake, Mom. Believing you, that was mine." She looked at me then, her gaze pleading, fragile. The cousins exchanged glances before Grace stepped forward, her tone clear and decisive. "Chloe was right. Ethan betrayed her and you defended him. That's not family. Next year, he's not welcome. None of us want him here." A ripple of agreement spread through the circle, murmurs rising like a tide. Heads nodded, Voices echoed softly, and for the first time in what felt like years, the current shifted toward me. I was no longer the outsider fighting for scraps of truth. I was the one they rallied around. Yet my eyes kept pulling back to Mom. Her tears had slowed, streaking her face, but her gaze wasn't on me. It was far away, fixed on some point beyond the dunes, somewhere unreachable. Even as Sophia and Lily stood with me, even as Dad's shoulders sagged in apology, she remained distant, a wall I couldn't breach. My fingers rose instinctively to the necklace at my throat, pressing the charm into my palm until the edges bit into my skin. Relief coursed through me, warm, fragile, fleeting, because at last I had clawed my way back into this family. But grief swelled too, a hollow ache that pulsed with every breath. I had won my place, yes, but not her love. Inside me, triumph tangled with sorrow like smoke twisting in opposite directions. I had survived their silence, their lies, their betrayal. I had forced the truth into the open. But one thought circled relentlessly, whispering against my resolve. I've won my place back. But why does Mom's distance still hurt? The lantern swayed above, shadows bending across tired, tear-streaked faces. The ocean crashed, relentless and eternal, a witness to everything we had broken and everything we had salvaged. I lifted my chin, let the silence settle, and breathed in the salt-heavy night. The necklace hung heavy, no longer a chain but not yet a comfort. This was the climax of years of wounds, and though the circle had tightened around me again, one bond, perhaps the one that mattered most, remained fractured. Bittersweet relief coursed through me, threaded with pain. Some bridges had been rebuilt, but one stood charred and smoldering. The wound would not heal tonight, and yet, beneath it all, I felt something stubborn stir. I was still here, still standing, and for now, that was enough. A year slipped by faster than I thought possible, yet the memories of that night still clung to me like the salt air on the shore. When I returned to the Outer Banks villa, my villa, it didn't feel like the battlefield it once had. The place looked softer now, almost reborn. Lanterns swayed above the deck, casting golden circles of light across the weathered wood. Their glow rippled with the breeze, and laughter, real laughter, not the brittle kind that hides bitterness, rose from the bonfire down on the sand. My cousins' voices carried with warmth, not accusation, sparks from the fire scattering into the night sky like tiny stars. For the first time in years, the air here didn't feel suffocating. It smelled of burning wood, salty sea spray, and a sweetness I couldn't quite name, maybe the taste of healing. But even in that glow, one shadow refused to leave. Mom sat at the farthest edge of the circle, her shoulders drawn stiff, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She wasn't absent. Her body was here, but her eyes avoided me as if the space between us was a wall. Each time the firelight caught on the silver necklace at my throat, her gaze flickered toward it and then quickly away, as though the sight of it scalded her. She never commented, never spoke of it, but her silence rang louder than any words could. That necklace, once a chain, then a lifeline, had become the one thing she couldn't bear to face. I smiled when Sophia nudged me to join the group. I laughed softly when Lily passed me a roasted marshmallow with an almost shy grin, her way of trying to bridge what had been broken. But the weight of Mom's silence pressed against me harder than the ocean wind. After a while, I excused myself and drifted down to the shoreline, letting the cool sand swallow my footsteps. The night air was heavy with salt, the waves crashing in their relentless rhythm, each one thundering like a reminder that time never stops. Behind me, the bonfire blazed, laughter weaving with the crackle of wood. Ahead of me, the horizon burned red, the sun's last light smearing across the water. It was the kind of sunset that made you feel both small and infinite, fragile yet unbreakable. I reached up, fingers closing around the necklace, the charm warm now from my skin. For so long it had been a weight I wanted to rip away, a reminder of betrayal and silence. But in this moment, standing here with the ocean wind tangling my hair, it felt different. It felt like proof that I had survived every wound, every dismissal, every lie, proof that I was still standing. I let the words slip from my lips, almost a prayer carried off by the tide. This beach holds our past, but can it hold our future? The question pulsed through me. This villa, This beach, they had seen everything. They had witnessed Ethan's betrayal, Mom's letter, Lily's venom, Nathan's silence. But they had also witnessed change. Sophia standing tall, Lily's trembling apology, Dad's rough but real admission. Slowly, painfully, a family that had fractured had begun to knit itself back together, stitch by fragile stitch. And yet, one stitch remained undone. Mom. Her distance was a wound that refused to close, a reminder that reconciliation could be partial, fragile, incomplete. Could I accept a family rebuilt while her gaze stayed locked behind glass? Could we truly heal if her heart never turned toward me again? The waves crashed harder, salt spray cooling my skin. It felt like the ocean itself was asking me to choose, live in what was broken, or step into what was beginning to heal. I turned then. The firelight flickered faintly in the distance, voices rising in soft harmony. I faced the camera I had set up on its tripod, its little red light blinking like a heartbeat in the dusk. The wind whipped my hair, and behind me the sunset painted the sea with streaks of crimson. My voice trembled at first, but steadied as I let the words pour out. Have you ever had to carve out your own space when family turned their backs? I paused, the waves rushing in to fill the silence I left. My hand pressed over the necklace, its weight anchoring me as much as it haunted me. How did you do it? I stepped closer, the fire crackling faintly behind me, my eyes fixed on the lens. Have you ever fought for your place in your own family? Tell me your story. For a long moment I let the camera linger on my face, dusk swallowing the edges of my reflection. My eyes burned with both hope and doubt, a mix I couldn't disguise. Finally, my voice dropped to a softer, steadier rhythm. Hit like if you've ever felt pushed out. Subscribe for more real stories, and share your experience in the comments. Maybe together we can figure out what family really means. The waves roared again, laughter carried on the wind, and somewhere behind me Mom's silence still held its distance. Relief mingled with ache, triumph with longing. Some wounds may never close, but some scars, I realized, were proof of survival, not weakness. I lifted my chin toward the horizon, the necklace glinting faintly in the fading light. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. Reclaiming my worth hadn't just healed me. It had redefined what family meant. A year can change everything, and yet some things stay exactly the same. When I stepped back into the Outer Banks villa, the same walls, the same deck, the same salty air rolling in from the ocean, it didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt lighter, fuller. This time, I wasn't arriving as an outsider, but as the one leading the family vacation. The wooden deck glowed under strings of lanterns, their light swaying in the breeze, spilling warm halos across faces gathered in a loose circle. From the beach below, the bonfire popped and hissed, the smell of charred wood mixing with roasted marshmallows. Laughter rose, the kind that carried freely without the weight of secrets dragging it down. I stood at the edge of it all, taking in the scene. My cousins were sprawled on blankets near the fire, Sophia telling a story that made everyone double over, her hands moving dramatically in the glow. Lily's laugh blended in, softer, tinged with something more tender than the sharpness it once carried. Even Dad, who had once chosen silence over truth, joined in, his voice louder than I remembered, his shoulders less hunched. But as much as joy filled the air, a shadow lingered. Mom sat apart from the rest, perched stiffly on a deck chair. The firelight touched her face, but her eyes avoided mine. She stared into the flames as if they alone deserved her attention. And every so often, when the silver charm around my neck caught the lantern's glow, her gaze flicked toward it and then away, as though even that brief glance burned. She never spoke of it, never acknowledged it, but her silence was the heaviest sound of all. I tried to laugh when Sophia called me over, tried to smile when Lily nudged me with a plate of s'mores, her expression awkward but hopeful. Yet I felt pulled in two directions, by the warmth of reconciliation and by the cold space where my mother's love should have been. After a while, I let my feet carry me away from the circle, down the wooden steps to the beach where the sand clung damp and cool beneath my toes. The night air wrapped around me, thick with salt and smoke. The ocean stretched wide, endless, its waves rolling in steady, unbothered by the mess of human ties. The horizon was painted with streaks of deep crimson and orange, the sun bleeding into the water, casting everything in an otherworldly glow. It was the kind of sunset that reminded you how fleeting everything was, and how infinite, too. I touched the necklace at my throat, curling the charm into my palm. For so long, it had been a symbol of everything broken, chains I couldn't shake, betrayals I couldn't outrun. But now it was something else. Not freedom, not closure, but proof. Proof that I had survived. Proof that I had carved out a place for myself, even when the people I loved most tried to strip it away. My breath caught as the words formed in my mind. This beach holds our past, but can it hold our future? The question pulsed through me, heavier than the tide. This place had seen everything. Ethan's lies, Lily's cruelty, Nathan's silence, Mom's betrayal. But it had also witnessed their confessions, their apologies, their slow, stumbling steps towards something better. A family once fractured was piecing itself together, fragile but real. Yet one thread remained loose, dangling, always threatening to unravel the whole thing. Mom. Her distance was sharper than her anger had ever been. Could we truly heal if her heart stayed locked away forever? Could I accept a family that was rebuilt on partial reconciliation? The waves rushed in harder, spraying salt across my skin, as though the ocean itself was asking me to decide, to keep looking at what was broken or to live in what had begun to heal. I turned then. The bonfire blazed behind me, cousins' voices drifting on the wind, laughter carried over the crash of waves. I faced the small camera I had set up in the sand, its red light blinking steady. My hair whipped across my face, the sunset bleeding across the water like fire, and I let my voice rise above the roar of the ocean. "Have you ever had to carve out your own space when family turned their backs?" I asked, my words carried by both the wind and the ache in my chest. I pressed my hand against the necklace, feeling its weight steady me. "How did you do it?" I stepped closer, eyes fixed on the lens, my reflection framed by firelight and fading sun. "Have you ever fought for your place in your own family? Tell me your story." For a long moment, I let silence hang, the ocean filling the gap. Then, with a softer tone, my voice reached out. "Hit like if you've ever felt pushed out. Subscribe for more real stories and share your experience in the comments. Maybe together we can figure out what family really means." Behind me, the fire crackled, cousins' laughter rose again, and still my mother's eyes lingered far from mine. Relief and ache twisted inside me, victory and longing locked hand in hand. Some wounds may never close, but some scars aren't signs of weakness. They're proof we've endured, proof we've chosen to keep standing. I lifted my chin toward the horizon, the necklace gleaming faintly against the last streaks of daylight. Whatever tomorrow held, I knew one thing. Reclaiming my worth hadn't just healed me. It had redefined family, not as something given, but as something earned, something chosen. And as the waves crashed relentless against the shore, I let the mystery remain. Would our family ever fully reconcile? I didn't know. But maybe the answer wasn't mine to hold alone. Maybe it belonged to all of us, including you.